Opioids. Opioids are among the most powerful substances humans have ever used. Originally designed for pain relief, they bind directly to receptors in the brain that control pain, reward, and survival. The onset feels like warmth, not just physical warmth, but emotional safety. Pain fades, stress disappears. Your body feels heavy, protected, still. At the peak, everything slows. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts drift. It feels like sinking into complete comfort. And that's what makes it dangerous, because the brain remembers that feeling and it starts chasing it. Tolerance builds quickly. The same dose stops working, so the dose increases, and somewhere along that line, the difference between relief and overdose becomes razor thin. The come down is brutal. Pain returns amplified. Anxiety spikes. The body revolts. Nausea, shaking, insomnia. Opioids don't just create dependence. They reprogram survival itself. The brain starts treating the drug like it's necessary to live, and once that happens, everything else becomes secondary. Methamphetamine. Meth doesn't ease the system. It overloads it. This is a stimulant that floods the brain with dopamine and adrenaline at extreme levels. When it hits, it's immediate. Energy explodes. Focus sharpens. Confidence surges. You feel awake in a way that feels unnatural, because it is. At the peak, the brain is running at maximum output. Thoughts race. Actions accelerate. Motivation turns into obsession. You can go hours, sometimes days, without sleep. But the brain is burning through its entire reserve. And when that reserve runs out, the crash is severe. Energy disappears. Mood collapses. Paranoia creeps in. Reality feels empty. Meth doesn't just give energy, it steals it from your future. And the more you use, the less your brain remembers how to feel normal without it. Cocaine. Cocaine is precision stimulation, fast, sharp, intense. It works by blocking dopamine reabsorption, flooding the brain's reward system almost instantly. The onset is a rush. Confidence, clarity, power. You feel capable, focused, elevated. At the peak, everything feels amplified. Speech speeds up. Movements sharpen. Thoughts feel important, brilliant even. But it's short-lived. Within minutes, dopamine drops. Hard. The come down hits like a wall. Anxiety, irritability, exhaustion. And what follows isn't just desire, it's urgency. Cocaine doesn't stretch pleasure. It compresses it into a spike and leaves you chasing that spike again and again. Nicotine. Nicotine is quieter, but just as strategic. It reaches the brain in seconds and releases dopamine in controlled bursts. At first, it feels like clarity, calm, focus. But nicotine doesn't create peace. It interrupts discomfort, because the moment it wears off, that discomfort returns, stronger, so you use it again and again. Over time, your brain adapts. Dopamine becomes dependent on nicotine. Without it, things feel dull. Nicotine isn't about getting high, it's about avoiding the low it creates. Caffeine. Caffeine is the most socially accepted stimulant in the world. It doesn't add energy, it blocks fatigue. By interfering with adenosine, the chemical that signals tiredness, it keeps your brain artificially alert. The onset feels clean, focused, productive. Within 20 minutes, you're sharper, faster, more engaged. But nothing has actually changed, except your perception of exhaustion. And when the caffeine wears off, that exhaustion returns, often stronger. So you reach for more. Over time, your baseline shifts. Natural energy drops. Dependence builds quietly. Caffeine isn't intense, that's why it's dangerous. Because it integrates into your life so smoothly, you stop noticing it's controlling part of your rhythm. Alcohol. Alcohol moves in the opposite direction. Instead of speeding the brain up, it slows it down. At first, that feels like relief. Inhibitions drop, social barriers fade. You feel more open, more relaxed. But what's actually happening is reduced control. At the peak, judgment weakens. Emotions rise, coordination slips, and yet you feel fine. That's the illusion alcohol creates. It disconnects awareness from reality. As it leaves your system, the effects reverse. Fatigue, dehydration, mental fog. And over time, something more subtle happens. Your brain begins to rely on alcohol to relax. So instead of using it occasionally, you start needing it regularly. Not for enjoyment, for normalcy. MDMA amplifies emotion. It floods the brain with serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, the chemicals behind happiness, connection, and trust. The onset feels warm, open, safe. Barriers disappear, conversations deepen, music feels alive. At the peak, empathy intensifies. You feel connected to people, to moments, to everything. It feels perfect, but it's chemically manufactured. And when the brain runs out of serotonin, the drop is immediate. The come down brings emptiness, fatigue, emotional flatness. The contrast is what makes it dangerous because your brain now knows what perfect felt like, and reality struggles to compete. Ketamine. Ketamine doesn't enhance reality, it removes you from it. By blocking glutamate, it disrupts how your brain processes sensory input and awareness. The onset feels distant, like stepping back from your own life. At higher doses, full dissociation occurs. You don't just feel detached, you feel separated from your body entirely. Time breaks apart, identity fades. Some describe it as peaceful, others describe it as losing control completely. The come down is slow. Awareness returns gradually, but often with lingering disorientation. Ketamine doesn't stimulate or depress, it disconnects. LSD. LSD reshapes perception itself. It binds to serotonin receptors tied to mood and awareness, altering how reality is processed. The onset is subtle. Patterns shift. Colors move. The world feels alive. At the peak, identity can dissolve. Time loses structure. Thoughts blend into sensations. You don't just observe reality, you experience it differently. It can feel profound or overwhelming. The come down is gradual. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. LSD doesn't create new thoughts. It amplifies what's already in your mind and removes the filters that usually keep it structured. Psilocybin. Psilocybin works similarly, but often feels more emotional, more introspective. It heightens perception while pulling attention inward. At the onset, senses sharpen, emotions surface, awareness expands. At the peak, thoughts become immersive. Memories, feelings, ideas, they all intensify. Some find clarity, others find chaos. The come down brings reflection, sometimes peace, sometimes confusion. Psilocybin doesn't push you outward. It pulls you inward and shows you what's already there. Cannabis. Cannabis sits somewhere in between. It doesn't fully distort reality, but it alters how you experience it. THC interacts with systems that regulate mood, memory, and perception. The onset slows things down. Time stretches. Sensory details sharpen. At the peak, it can feel calming or disorienting, creative or confusing. It depends on the dose and the state of mind. The come down is usually mild, but repeated use changes how the brain processes reward and motivation. Cannabis doesn't overwhelm the system. It quietly reshapes it. Benzodiazepines. Benzodiazepines reduce activity. They enhance GABA, the chemical responsible for calming the brain. The onset feels like relief. Tension fades, thoughts slow. At the peak, everything softens. Anxiety disappears. Sleep comes easily, but the brain adapts quickly, and once it does, calm becomes dependent on the drug. The come down brings fog, confusion, emotional dullness. And withdrawal can be severe, sometimes dangerous. They don't just reduce anxiety, they replace your ability to manage it. Every substance follows a pattern: onset, peak, come down, relief, illusion, cost. Some hit harder, some hide better. But all of them borrow something from you: your balance, your clarity, your future.